So hey guys, it's me Misha. Good morning, good morning. Awesome. So let's just dive into it today. I wanted to talk about how do you get locations for your movies or anything that you're filming, and this goes to like getting permits, getting permission to shoot somewhere. This is what this whole video is going to be about. Is one, finding a location, and then second of all, most important, trying to get permission to use that location, which are both very complicated things. And then I'm going to share the alternate solutions if you can't do that. And the alternate solutions are preferred, but sometimes you have to make things work even if you can't get a location. So we're going to talk about that too. Um, so when you're trying to acquire sets or locations for a film or for a TV show or for whatever you're creating, it really doesn't matter what you're creating. If you're trying to get a location, especially it depends on what the laws are in your state. Because here in Virginia, since Virginia is a Commonwealth and it's a tourist town where I live in Virginia Beach, is a tourist town. Virginia Beach is a Commonwealth. It's very hard for even bigger studios to film here because of the property tax here is a lot higher, especially in Virginia Beach and around here because it's a tourist town and I think the only few movies that really somehow got permission to shoot in Virginia was I know that one movie that Tom Hanks starred in a few years ago about he got abducted by pirates or something. I can't remember. I think it was directed by Paul Greengrass, and but the directors were set to get to film here since that's actually where the event happened. The event actually happened at the at the Norfolk shipyard, and so I think they actually did film here. I think somehow they got permission by the state or the city somehow to film here, but it must have been a technical horrible process since again Virginia is not one of the most lenient states for filmmaking. It's honestly a pain. You can go to Atlanta, LA, pretty much even filming out in Nebraska would probably be an easier place to do film since there's not nearly as many hoops you need to jump through. So another movie I can think about that did manage to shoot in Virginia Beach was Zero Dark 30. Obviously, because the events that were unfolding, the actual SEAL team that actually went out on that mission were actually based and also were from this area, and that's another reason why they somehow got permission to shoot certain locations. I'm not saying they shot a huge portion of the movie. Most of the stuff I heard about, they were shooting to just B-roll and stuff. But still, even for small things, it's really a pain to get permission to shoot anywhere in Virginia. Another very successful movie that Steven Spielberg did when he was shooting the Lincoln movie with Daniel Day-Lewis, obviously, they had to shoot in historical sites in Virginia because it's Abraham Lincoln, Daniel Day-Lewis. Of course, of course you're gonna have to match things the best you can, and a lot of events in American history and Abraham Lincoln occurred around Virginia. So, of course, they somehow got permission to shoot at certain areas, maybe certain battlefields. I don't know, I'm not a huge history buff myself, but I do know that they were shooting. I know at the time, my friend, my old business partner, a few years ago was actually in the Richmond area or something like that. And he said that he actually saw a crew out there filming for that movie when that movie was being made, and obviously they were shooting around Richmond, Williamsburg, Gettysburg, like all those burgs. Obviously they got permission to shoot in these historical landmarks. And that kind of leads me to the next thing I'm going to say is it really depends on the area that you're in. Like, again, Virginia is very hard to film here because of the property tax. Again, it's gonna suck a bitch for you. It's it's a Commonwealth state. Especially Virginia law here is very. It's tough. Back then, filming was actually a lot harder before iPhones. I remember that I once tried to get permission from City Hall and other places to shoot at, and oh my god, the paperwork and the hoops that they had me jump through were just ridiculous. Like, just absolutely. And this is why I want to talk about alternatives. And again, this might ensue breaking some laws, and that's why I want to come out with full awareness. Do not do this, and it's not preferred, and I recommend you don't do this to an extent, and that's where things get sketchy. And you know, so I'm not held accountable for anyone who's doing this. I'm just saying you guys are going to be warned that you shouldn't do this, but you know, sometimes you gotta pull some strings. Didn't say I didn't warn you. If you get in trouble, that's you. So just be mindful of that. These next things I'm gonna talk about. Since Virginia is so hard to film in here, and it's really tough to get permissions, and it's a lot of paperwork that people have to adjust and fill out and get permissions from City Hall, City Council. It's just a huge chain of things that you really do need to get permission on. You know, and it costs money, obviously, a lot of money. I'm unaware of how much money it costs because I haven't done a lot of that, and this is why I'm saying this in full disclosure. These methods aren't preferred. I have had to do them because, again, not everybody's made with money, and not everybody can go through those hoops, spend that type of money, and get, like, you know, the right security for a lockdown on a area. Like, if you're shooting a certain area, like let's say, for example, if you were shooting a bigger movie, and if you were filming a car chase, and if you got permission to lock down a certain area of a road or a highway, not a highway, who would lock down a highway? Come on. I'm being for real here. No one in the right mind would attempt doing that. But if you're gonna lock down a certain area of road, that takes a lot of stuff. You need to work with the police department on that. You need to work with a slew of things. But long story short, if you were going to do that, again, not only would you be making arrangements with that area, with the city, the state, everything else, you got to go through these tiers of government. So it's going to be a mess, guys. But with full disclosure, again, if you do these other things, they will help. But again, you are breaking the law. I'm just telling you this up front. If you do these other things, you're technically breaking the law. So, just so you know, I'm not held accountable for your actions if you do these. You can always run and gun it. And this is what I'm talking about, is I haven't done this a lot in my career, so I'm actually proud of myself that I've been pretty I've done a lot of shoots, and most of the places I didn't have to get permission by the state or the city, because um I the places I shot at, either at the restaurants, if they're normally they're inside. I don't do a lot of filming outside, because I do filming at places that I know certain people, and if you know certain people that can help you get a lockdown on a place, like if you know someone who owns a gym, if you know someone who owns a bar, if you know someone who owns a restaurant, if you know somebody that owns something, or a business or establishment, if you know somewhere that owns a location, that's always the best way to go. It's best to go to people you know, so you're not going to just walking into a normal business and you're asking to shoot there. Most times they're going to get you out of there. Businesses don't want cameras in professional establishments. And and I actually did try this once, not because I was actually trying to film here at this location, but I did it just to see what the technical hoops I would have to go through. One time I asked to film in a Starbucks, and I knew it was gonna be hell. I was just curious how many hoops I would have to go through. Oh my god. So I went in there properly dressed, very, very fancy, clean shaven, was presenting myself nicely. I walked up, obviously I talked to someone at the front counter, they got me in touch with the manager, and obviously the first thing they said to me was that I would have to go to corporate. And then, get permission from corporate head of Starbucks company. And that's pretty much where the line was drawn. And they were very polite. They didn't tell me to get out or kick me out. They would have kicked me out if I just came in there waving a camera, filming a camera all around there. And I've never done that. I've seen people do that, and that's what I'm saying is that I cannot stress this enough. People cannot just walk into establishments waving cameras in people's faces, demanding if they can shoot there. I'm telling you, you can get arrested for that. That's not cool. So it's all about the way that you approach it. Any business that you walk into, like a Starbucks, they're protecting their brand, they're protecting their company, and the last thing they need is some person causing a commotion and then posting something on the internet, and then it just blows up. And so that's why companies are very protective of their brand, their self-image, everything that revolves around their ecosystem. So you have to respect that. But I did it, I tried, and that's where it pretty much ended. And that's what I was anticipating. I just did it just to see what type of parameters would actually Starbucks actually have me go through. And they said that I would have to file paperwork and stuff and get permissions from all these tiers way up above them. And I'm like, so I was just like, okay, alright. And I pretty much shook their hand and I walked out. Just to see. And I think when I was younger, again, I think my friends and I tried to do that with the McDonald's. And trust me, McDonald's has never been the same ever since that Super Size Me documentary. Oh man, McDonald's got blasted for that, and it totally changed everything with them. But long story short, if you're gonna do a running gun shoot, and this is what I'm talking about, is if you're not gonna get permission for anything, again, a lot of this stuff is illegal if you don't give permission. So if you're shooting somewhere and if you don't know the managers, and if you haven't gotten permission from that establishment, that restaurant, the bar, anywhere you're shooting that doesn't belong to you, like anywhere outside of your home, apartment, anywhere that's not your property, public property, we're going to talk about that soon. Public property is different, but if you're filming at a business establishment, anywhere that's not your jurisdiction, that's not yours, you have to get permission from either the landowner. If you're filming, if you're trying to get certain houses to film at, like I've heard people go to royalty businesses and ask to film in certain homes. That's very complicated. You have to get permission from the agencies, and you gotta be respectful of what they're asking you to go through. It's gonna be a mess. But if you're gonna run and gun it, and if you're gonna go to an establishment and film without permission, again, I cannot stress this enough. You very could be arrested, and that's something to take very seriously. I don't like seeing people just going in and causing a commotion, waving cameras around, saying, I'm a filmmaker, I'm entitled to my American rights because I'm an American, hooray, hurrah. No. My God, no. There are laws, there are restrictions, you have to be respectful of this, and I cannot stress this enough. Everything doesn't revolve around you and your needs. You have to be respectful of businesses, establishments, and laws, and getting permits, and you have to be respectful of that. You can't just barge into any business and just act like you're gonna shoot here and it doesn't matter what everyone else is up to. You have to respect other businesses. So if you are going to do a running gun, and if you are going to shoot it, without permission, be careful. That's the only thing I can really say, is that if someone calls the cops on you, and if they catch you, one of two things might happen to you. You will get arrested. You probably might go to jail. You might, depending on how reckless you and your crew were being, or depending on the area. Like, if you were caught shooting on a base without permission, that is a huge no-no. You pretty much trespassed on government property, and that is like a huge. I can't even imagine how bad that would be. If you trespass on a neighbor's property, that's not going to be severe, but not as severe. But still, if they don't want you shooting there and you didn't get permission, they could sue you, and you could get in trouble. It could lead to court. These are things that you have to be respectful of. And but as far as my experience getting locations, I really haven't done a lot of things where I've not gotten permission. I mean, at best, I've shot like documentaries in certain cities and areas, and outside, near libraries and stuff. That's more, it's not like walking into an establishment and trying to get permission to shoot there. One time I was filming in a downtown area, and I was filming some B-roll for a rap music video I was doing. So we walked into a diner, and I told my client to, just to sit down in the corner. I'll talk to the manager, and I was very respectful. I went up to him and I said hi. I shook his hand, was very professional about it, and I explained to him point blank where, we like the aesthetic of your establishment, and may we shoot a few shots here, and then obviously we were gonna include that in the credits, and and all that good stuff. And at the time, there weren't a lot of people in there. That's another thing. That's a huge other thing, is if you're filming in a restaurant or something like that. Oh my gosh, if there's a lot of people in there, it's gonna be hell for you. I mean, just that a restaurant is trying to make money, and you can't just go in there with cameras and just disrupt their whole restaurant business with a whole bunch of people in there. Again, you have to be respectful. So, I went in there. I asked them politely. I knew that there was no one in there at the time, and I just said, "Hey, we're filming an R&B music video, and I just need like 5 or 6 shots of my client kind of doing some of his bars at a table, rapping some of his lines at a table, and that's all it was." And we asked him if we can film it in the corner and not showing any signs of the business, not showing any logos, not any brands. Just talk to him about it respectfully. And he was like, "Well, if that's all you're doing, I'm okay." And, and that's what I'm saying, is that I've also gotten permission to shoot a World War II Holocaust movie at a huge airsoft field. A huge, wonderful airsoft field. Shout out to Ballahack. I cannot thank the owners enough for giving us permission to shoot there. And let me discuss to you how that went down. We were going to shoot pretty much all day there. And Ballahack is one of the biggest airsoft fields on the East Coast. And this is what I'm saying, is if you're going to somewhere, a brand, a company that has a big company, they have a brand to protect, you have to be respectful. When we were going to shoot the World War II Holocaust documentary-esque film that we were shooting, we needed an area that kind of looked like a concentration camp. And when I was talking to my business partner at the time, he mentioned Ballahack. He's been going there for years, played at their huge airsoft field, which is kind of a disheveled, torn down town they had built. It's amazing. I cannot recommend them enough. They were so wonderful to us. But here's how we went about it. We actually wrote the scripts out beforehand, and then we were trying to get a lockdown on that location. And the hard thing is, there wasn't really anything else around us that we could match to such a T, especially if we're shooting a period piece and we're trying to find kind of something that resembles a Holocaust environment. And I mean, everything was depending on this lockdown on this location. So if we couldn't get this, we even discussed just driving out way into probably out of Virginia and filming in a field. Again, if there are signs at fields or areas saying no trespassing, don't trespass. You have to be respectful of these things. So we reached out to Ben and the other guy who ran Battlehack. I sent them an email, very professional email, described to them everything. I even sent them parts of the script. I was very thorough with everything that we were going to be doing. And that's another huge thing, is if you go to these establishments, these businesses, if you're shooting in a hotel, which I'll probably talk about that soon too. If you're shooting anywhere, don't lie to them about what you're shooting. It's because they're going to find out. Is if you go to somewhere and you're planning on shooting a gangster movie with prop guns and stuff like that, or don't use real guns. Please, that's a huge law, actually. People can get in trouble for even holding a firearm on a set. That's something that states are very, very tight about. Just you don't want to be walking into an establishment holding a gun and you're acting out a scene where a gangster scene, and then people get the wrong idea. Normally if you're doing that type of scene, it's best to get a police officer to be on set with you, and just so people won't get the wrong idea, and people will call the cops on people, because if they see like a scene like that playing out where someone has a gun pointed at them, they're not going to know that you're shooting a movie. And that's why you got to be, you got to be smart about these things. You just can't do that. You can't just, especially if you don't get permission, you can't just walk into somewhere, not get permission, and if you do ask and they say no and then you still do it, you're trespassing. And if you don't have signs up saying you're filming a movie around that area and people don't know, and if you're filming a scene that involves violence or gunplay or anything like that, people will get the wrong idea. People will get suspicious. People will call the cops. And I cannot stress this enough, especially if you're using firearms, which I recommend you don't. Get fake ones. Get BB guns. And that's another thing, is that there are strict laws about BB guns too, is that you have to have those orange tips on the front. That's a law. That is an actual law. Is if you spray paint over those tips, by law, those look like guns, and that's why they have them on there, so the authorities and the police and people can see that and they know that they're BB guns. Again, this is why these laws are in place, is to protect people, and prevent people from getting hurt, and that's the law, is that you can't spray over those. Normally how I have combated that is I mask everything out in post after I get permission. Try to get permission again. There are certain parameters that aren't going to be perfect, but if you tell the businesses what you're doing, is if you get permission to shoot there, is if you have signs up saying you're filming a movie, if you have police on standby telling, people, telling public, telling ongoers who are seeing you do this, just protecting the area, just letting people know that this is a movie, not to worry, there are a lot of things that you need to consider. But going back to Ballahack, I sent them an email and was very thorough with what we were planning on doing. I told them straight up, we're filming a World War II Holocaust film. It's kind of like we were taking a real life event, kind of a story about these two Holocaust survivors. And another huge thing is we said up front when we posted that movie, when we made that movie, to protect ourselves, our brand, our images, as we said up front, we do not support or condone the Nazi Party. Be upfront with people these days. So when I gave them the full rundown of the story, of the script, the historical references and photos, told them specifically what we were asking to do, it was really unbelievable at the time, because again, Ballahack and how they have their airsoft field set up to a T with destroyed buildings, and just the location itself was so magnificently arranged and set up and propped, and it's a beautiful location. After I gave them a whole rundown and everything, and they said, it's actually funny that you're asking us to film here, because they said they were about to shut down the airsoft field for only 2 days out of the year. Not even lying to you. This was around the same time that they were performing maintenance on the field, and they said, these are the only 2 days that we have that anybody will not be here, and we won't be doing skirmishes or matches with the players. I'm like, really? Okay. And so, and that was our only shot, was we had those 2 days, which we didn't even have those days. I think they said that they were performing maintenance on the second day, and we have to do it in this 1 day. Only 1 day to shoot here. And and besides that, we can't come back. You know, you only had this one time slot. And, you know, they said the owners would come in around 6 or 7. We were there around 7:30. People had to drive out a ways to get there. Packed full of gear, you know, props, costume, gear. I think we had a 5-car brigade of cars driving out to this location. I think almost 6 different cars filled with passengers and equipment. And I will never forget this. They were really impressed. Like, they thought that we were shooting just a few kids just making a backyard movie type thing. Like, they didn't think that we were gonna bring lights and cameras and all that mess. And we brought cables and cords and just flags and a blood cannon and air compressor. We had it all in the back of a truck. And no, we didn't drive out there with it in a truck. That's breaking a law again, is that you gotta be careful what you put in a flatbed. And if stuff's hanging out, you gotta put stuff on it to let people know, stuff like that. But we had it packed in cars, and when we were filming out there, and they kind of, you know, told us, they said that we can use the whole field. They gave us permission to shoot at every area of the field. They didn't restrict us to certain areas. They said, you know, make what you're doing. And we had till like 7:30, and I think we had to be out of there by 6:30 p.m. So we had to get everyone there. We got everyone there at 7. We started unpacking, unloading everything. Once we got to the parking lot, they gave us permission to drive our cars on the field, around the field, because again, it's a big field. It's not just like a danky, small, a few acres of land. This is a huge, like, built pretend town, and a destroyed town with propped old tanks and stuff like that, and military-esque props and stuff. It is legit, and I think they even allowed us to use smoke bombs and stuff for some of the scenes, and I think my business partner bought some smoke bombs for some scenes that we thought would add to the aesthetic. So when we were filming there, it was a rush, guys. We literally had probably like 8 hours, 10 hours. I'm not good with math, but 7:30 to 6:30 p.m. Do the math for me. We didn't have a lot of time to film everything we needed to. We literally were just running and gunning everything, trying to get everything on our shot list. It was, and that's why, and it actually started raining. Like that's the thing. The 2 biggest factors when we were shooting that was not only what was it the hottest day out of the whole year in Virginia. It was just scorching hot, and then like halfway through the day, torrential effing downpour, like. And I brought umbrellas. I brought really big umbrellas. And that's something everybody laughs about in the behind the scenes, is when it started raining, I had to rush back to my car, drenching in water, because it was in the parking lot still. My car was in the parking lot, not on the field like everyone else's was. I don't know why. We were in a rush, guys, but there's a behind-the-scenes moment where I'm walking back drenched in the rain. And I don't even have the umbrellas open, and people are laughing, well, why don't you have an umbrella open? And, you know, even before it rained, I said, don't worry, I brought really big umbrellas, which was really funny. But we did it. Most of the cameras weren't protected by the rain, which is unbelievable. I still can't believe cameras didn't get destroyed. Actually, this camera, as you can see, got pretty beat up, tattered and beat up right here. Actually, the belt, the strap got pretty destroyed on that shoot. The screen was pretty torn up. Everything was pretty battered and beat, and I mean, I still can't believe this thing got water on it for sure. Just absolutely wrecked. And somehow, if you can see that, somehow this camera did survive. And I even the pixels on some of the screen are dead from the water damage. And then we had our larger camera out there, unprotected. Then we had this gimbal that kept shutting down, and it was a wreck. And that's why you see the fight scene and how we had that choreographed and planned to shoot. It was going to be a lot more dramatic than just us panning back and forth, seeing the guys tussle on the ground. And then it was chaotic. I was screaming. I was like, keep going, keep going, keep going. Just keep acting it out. Because I knew we couldn't just be standing around. Just that we only had like half an hour left or an hour left. And I was like, we were running from different parts of the field in torrential effing downpour, mud everywhere since it's dirt everywhere. It was muddy, it was chaotic, it was just a rush, guys. Like, and then right after we finished that last scene with when our main character kills Klaus, the Nazi who ran the camp, and he's holding his dying wife in his arms after she was killed by him, and right when we were filming that scene, that's when the clouds started to kind of break apart, and the sun was shining through, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful event. It was beautiful. I mean, it was just absolutely beautiful how everything kind of, it was almost like we were tested going up against the storms. It's like every hour of that shoot got harder and harder, but I knew we couldn't let rain stop us. I knew we couldn't let the heat. And that's another thing. My business partner brought a lot of water. Thank goodness. We had a lot of water to keep people hydrated. We had some snacks, but again, we knew it was going to be hot. We didn't know it was going to be like 100 something hot, like 102 or something. It felt like 102. Like if it was like 98 degrees that day, that summer out in Ballahack, and then like half of the day it was just terribly hot, and then the other half just torrential effing downpour. And my cinematographer was joking with me, and he's like, "This is like Saving Private Ryan. I told you that the rain is gonna make it more cinematic." I'm like, well, it's one thing to have it be more cinematic, but what are we gonna do about protecting the cameras? If we don't have protection for our cameras and they get wet, we're not gonna be able to finish it. But they had like these cargo containers out on the field, and that's where we were all hunkered in there with rain just pouring down, and it was a wreck. But I think but it was beautiful, because after we had to rush that one scene where at the last scene where she's killed, and he's holding his dead wife in his hands, and he just has to get up, accept the fact that he's the last survivor without his wife by his side. And we originally planned, we had our drone pilot Paul Contos. If you're watching this, Paul, thank you so much. Paul, we actually wanted to shoot a scene for the ending credit scene, when you see everything go, where you just see Matt, our actor Matt Abbott, playing Joseph, just walking out into the field and having the camera and the drone dolly back, just showing him walking into the field of nowhere, and he's just alone and by himself. But we couldn't do that for time constraints, and we only had enough time to ask Paul to go out to a field somewhere and to shoot that long field shot that we put at the end without Matt in it. And it was a continuity error. That's why we couldn't do it. It was because Matt's clothes, Matt already tossed out his clothes, unfortunately, after the shoot. So the clothes that we specifically got for his character, and we went to several thrift shops and got certain patterns and clothing to match that time period, to match Matt's character. Matt actually shaved his head to fit kind of like, since they did do that to people in the Holocaust. People were had to shave their heads in concentration camps, and he was very committed, and I was like, Matt, you didn't need to shave your head. He's like, Misha, I'm playing a character. If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it the right way. I'm like, more props to you, man. It was a miracle. It was a miracle that we got everything shot in time, and right when the clouds dissipated and we just all stood there going, oh, we did it. We just that we survived. We survived everything. We got everything on the cards. We got it all shot. Now it's just down to the post work and the editing. It was a absolute beautiful miracle. It was a beautiful moment. I remember when we packed everything up. And that's another thing, is when you film at an establishment, I cannot stress this enough either, is if you film at an establishment, when you leave, you cannot leave it looking like crap. You cannot leave it looking like doo-doo. If you get permission from somewhere, you gotta be respectful. You gotta be professional. You gotta keep it clean. You can't just, like, there was one scene where we were gonna do, another actor got shot, by Klaus, and we were gonna use a blood cannon, but then the more we thought about it, and we were like, we didn't want to damage any of their set they had there at Ballahack, and so even though we did build a DIY blood cannon, fake blood cannon, knowing fake blood stains stuff, and we didn't want to damage anything at Ballahack, and we were just like, screw it. I don't feel comfortable doing this now that we're here and we have permission here and we're doing it. I don't feel comfortable. I'm going to just have to do it in post, unfortunately. And, that's what I'm saying is, if you do that, you got to be very clear. And, I think we told Ballahack about the blood cannon. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did. We did. And they were okay with it. They said, just don't get it on anything, just do it out in a section, not on any buildings or something. Just be respectful of their property, of our property. So, I guess that's what they're called. When we were shooting that scene, I talked to my cinematographer, at that moment. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable about this. I don't want to damage anything. Let's just shoot it, and we'll add a blood effect or acid in post, and that's what we did. And spattered behind Joey, the person who got shot, and it splattered on the wall in post. And I had to mask and rotoscope all that stuff out in post and add that effect. And that's another reason why we were honored and privileged to shoot at Ballahack, is because, again, if we were shooting this out in public in a field and people saw us wearing costumes with Nazi uniforms and emblems and chasing people, it's just a recipe for disaster. Someone's gonna call the cops. So that's why we were pretty gung-ho to shoot at Ballahack, was because it was way out in the country. Ballahack was the only people there. The managers were there. They knew what we were doing. We weren't causing a disturbance. People knew what was happening. I think they even told people after. I think the film was a huge promotion for them, because all their players actually saw the movie, and everybody was like, that's really cool that Ballahack, allowed us to shoot that movie there. And that's what I'm going to say. Back to what I was saying, was Ballahack didn't understand how professional we were actually going to be. Like, when we showed up with lights and stuff, like, right before, after we ended filming, and the manager came back, Ben came back, and he's like, and he saw the wires everywhere, and the masking tape, and the lights, and the cars, and where we set base camp, and he looked at this, and he's like, damn, you guys are serious. Like he thought we were gonna just shoot something with our iPhones and be chasing each other, and that wasn't the case. We were shooting and blocking a movie, and we were going about it very professionally. We even had people, I remember people going into the towers area that they had, and we had to carefully run cable up these buildings, so like 20, 30-foot buildings, and weave them in and out of the structure and tape them to, not with duct tape, but we were very careful with how we put things and placed things, and we were just very respectful of that property, and because we didn't want to damage it. So it was a miracle that we got it done. And then I remember we packed up everything, we shook their hands, we tidied everything, we cleaned up all the water bottles, put them in trash bags, we cleaned everything up, made sure the field looked better than how we found it. And that's another big thing, is if you're shooting at a location, leave it better than how you originally found it. Companies like that. Companies will see that. Never leave a location destroyed or hurt or trash everywhere. I've seen that so many times where businesses allow, or locations or managers or people allow people to film at certain areas, and they're not, polite about that, and they kind of trash the place, and it kind of agitates them, and they're like, well, we're not going to allow people to film here again. And I've seen that happen. It's like, I've heard stories of people who gone to certain people, businesses, establishments, and they're like, no, we don't really want people here because we had a bad experience where we allowed certain people to film, and they trashed it. And so again, be respectful of that. When you do get permissions to shoot somewhere, keep it tidy, keep it neat, keep it professional. Don't damage anything. It's not your property, it's theirs. Be courteous of that. But summing up all this stuff, if you're going to do it DIY, just know that there are laws that you got to be careful of. You can't trespass. If you're going to be shooting anything with gunplay or fighting, talk to your local police department. Tell them what you're doing, and let them know what you're doing. Let them know that you're shooting this scene, so if there is confusion, and if people get the wrong idea and call the police, the police department will know about it, and they won't come in, stuff like that. It's best to have, if you have gunplay going on in a scene, it's best to have signs up, and it's even better to have an officer there on set, so ongoers don't get the wrong idea. You gotta protect yourself. But if you're shooting stuff without permission, you gotta be careful. You gotta be really careful. But my biggest advice out of all this, I know this is a long video because there's a lot of laws and restrictions, and I just want people to know that these are, you have to take them seriously. You can't go into a business and just disrupt it and say, I'm going to film this movie here, and that's not you gotta be polite and respectful to businesses. You gotta go about it professionally. You gotta get permission from the owners, and if they're asking you to go up the corporate ladder and get permission from the heads of that company, you gotta do that. You can't just be disgruntled with them about that. You gotta be professional. So, to wrap up this video, I think the best way to go about getting a location is when you're writing a movie, don't just rewrite the script like we did with the World War II film we had and then search for the locations. Because after we wrote that script, we got permission from Ballahack, thank God. But if we didn't, that was probably where the movie was going to end. Because we weren't going to just go out into a field and film it. Because we didn't feel comfortable doing that. We didn't want people to get the wrong idea and call the cops. So, the best way to combat that is if you're writing a story, go to businesses while you're writing your story and explain to them what you're doing. And it's best to go to your friends who own businesses. It's a lot easier to go to friends or to connections that you have as your friends, people who have known you, people who know you personally, and who you built trust with. That's the best way to go about it. Go to people earlier when you're writing the movie, not when you're shooting it. When you're writing the movie, go to your friends who own businesses or establishments or locations. Talk to them. Get permission from them well early on in the writing process, and let them know kind of like, and if they give you the go-ahead, be respectful of their property. Leave it better than how you originally found it. Be professional about it. If they want you to only film in certain areas, shoot in those certain areas. Don't go against their word and shoot where you're not allowed. Be respectful of that. But instead of just writing a movie and then finding locations and going to businesses who you don't obviously know in person, it's best to, while you're writing it, to go to those establishments, go to people that you know, go down the grapevine of your contacts and your connections and get permission from friends and people who can help you out, So you're not jumping through hoops, like walking into a Starbucks and asking politely if you can shoot in the Starbucks, and then you have to go through corporate and all that mess. So just go to your contacts, your friends list. I know I shot something where I needed a police officer, and I went to a friend who their dad was a police officer, and I explained to him, hey, we need a shot of a cop car outside pulling up to the house, and he was understanding enough. He said, okay, well, you can't show my license plate, my decals, my numbers, and all that stuff. So we shot like the front part of the car pulling up to the house, and it's best to do it that way. Go to people that you know. Keep it in a circle of people that know you, trust you, know you're not gonna, you're not a stranger to them. That's the best way to do that early on before you shoot anything. Get everything lined up and set up with these people that you trust while you're writing your scripts before you declare that you're putting something into production, and then you're having to find these locations before you film. And then if something falls through before you film, you're kind of screwed. So again, a lot was hanging in the balance for us when we were shooting that World War II Holocaust movie, was because of the fact that when we planned this, we knew that we wanted to go to Ballahack. But where we did wrong was we should have asked them before we wrote the script. We should have gotten that locked down, is because we were in that balance of like, we were getting the gear together, we were getting the costumes, we got people together, it's all coming together. The only thing that was left was getting the okay from Ballahack, and then the times and just when we were allowed to come and stuff like that. So a lot was hanging in on that. Was if they said no, I think that's where we would have just dropped the idea. you know, because we weren't just gonna go out into into a field somewhere out of nowhere and, you know, and risk being, getting in trouble somewhere. So, so that's all I had to say about finding locations and going about no, not copyright, just going about, permits, and if you're gonna shoot it run and gun, be very careful. If you're trespassing, you're trespassing. People don't like trespassing. In some areas, you might get shot. I'm not lying. You gotta take these things seriously. You don't know people and how they will respond to that on their property, and you really have to be professional about how you go about finding locations, getting permissions, and being respectful of the owners and their business, and just being professional out there while you're shooting it. Clean it up nice, leave it better than how you originally found it. Be respectful, be professional, promote them afterward, you know, do everything you can, you know, they scratch your back, you scratch theirs, type of thing. If there's money involved, get the money squared away before any filming happens. Make sure there's contracts. Did we use contracts with Ballahack? Yes, we did. We had people sign waiver forms. We had people sign waivers. I think we had Ballahack sign a contract. I'm pretty sure we did. I think we did have them sign a contract saying that they stated that we were going to be filming this at their location, and they were granting us permission to film here, and if anything was damaged, we were liable. So, you gotta be respectful of that. You gotta be respectful of locations and businesses and establishments. Alright, guys, I know this was a long one, but it's really important. And this is a really important topic, especially if you're shooting in Virginia, where it's just a headache to shoot anywhere. You know, every state's gonna be different. Every state's gonna have different rules. Every state's gonna be either tougher or easier to get permission to shoot, and just be courteous of that. Alright, guys, I hope you like this and have a great day. Awesome.